Let's assume that I have no more silver. Let's take everything off the table here and pretend for just a moment that everything that I have is gone. And if I were starting a new silver stack today, given everything that's been going on lately, here's exactly how I would approach it. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what you should do if you're starting out today. So let's break everything down. Want to win 100 ounces of American Silver Eagles completely free? Well, JM Bullion is giving away 5 full tubes of 100 coins packed in a custom waterproof Pelican case. There is no purchase necessary, and the giveaway ends September 11th of this year. And if you want to get in on this opportunity, click the link in the description below to enter for your chance to win. And just to be clear, JM Bullion is not sponsoring this channel in any sort of way. This is me just wanting to pass this opportunity along to help you guys out. So don't miss out on this. Click the link in the description and enter for your chance to win 100 ounces of free silver. Hi everybody, and welcome back to yet another video. Well, it's been about almost 2 months now since I made a video kind of similar to this on this topic specifically about starting out in 2025 as a new stacker and what that means to you. But a lot has happened since those last 2 months, and I feel like I need to readdress some things because, like I said, a lot has happened. We saw silver price spike to almost $40, approaching highs we haven't seen in over a decade, war in the Middle East breaking out, India and Pakistan having a quick bout back and forth, and now it seems like we're on the brink of World War III with the US deciding to bomb nuclear sites inside of Iran. And with all of this happening since that last video that I made, and again, I want to address the changes that we've seen. And if you're considering getting into gold and silver, here's what you should do given all of the events recently and where we currently stand in the market. And I want to start off with the core stacking philosophy, or the framework that we as stackers have agreed upon as the fundamental importance that each of us need to maintain and sometimes remind ourselves constantly. And silver and gold are a long-term savings vehicle. It is not a short-term investment. The goal of this hobby or investment, depending on how you view these, is to preserve wealth, beat inflation, and stay outside of the traditional financial system that we currently live under. We do this by converting our fiat money, aka your dollars and cash, into precious metals. And if you're thinking about starting out, don't worry too much about the prices and where they currently are today, because the habits and discipline are what will shape the foundation of your future and your stack. So again, as I stated earlier, a lot has happened, even in just the last 5 years. We've been through a pandemic, we've been through lockdowns, inflation spikes, internal political struggles, at least here in the US, wars breaking out in Europe, the Middle East, etc. And not to mention, gold has been hitting all-time highs, and silver's approaching its near all-time highs as well. And each time some major event occurs, the perception of where things will go is usually negative. And however, metals, and specifically gold, has not been negative. It's going up in value, and we're starting to see silver do the same thing as well, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that your dollar is losing value. So, in other words, there is no correct time to start. The only real, correct thing you can do is to just ignore the prices and just start stacking. Everybody's got an entry point. I started back in 2021, and now looking at it, it might look good today, but there are people before me who were better off before I started. And so I would even say it's safe to say that if you start today, you'll look back in a few years from now and wonder why you didn't start earlier. And other people are going to be wondering why they didn't either. Okay, so how do you get started today? Well, there are 3 things that I think you should consider. And the first one is to set a budget for yourself. Focus on monthly commitments, not trying to time the markets, because no one ever wins when they try to time the market. Just stick to what we call the dollar cost average method of buying what you can when you can, even if it's just 1 ounce of silver per month. You'll be surprised how fast it builds up over time, especially with silver. And it doesn't make sense for you to go broke by dumping all of your savings or retirement accounts into precious metals without really understanding what it is that you're doing. Start with small amounts and just gradually change your habits as you gain more experience with your understanding of precious metals. The second thing to consider is picking your first coin, and there are many different options when it comes to choosing what type of silver to buy. There are a few categories that you can choose from, but I'd recommend starting out with the low premium pieces, something like the Buffalo rounds or any of the bars like you see on this table. These are going to give you the most silver for your money. And if you're not too concerned about that, then getting something like these American Silver Eagles will be great, especially if you live in the US like I do. And certain countries have created their own bullion piece to represent themselves. So, if you live in Canada, the Maple Leaf is pretty good. In Mexico, the Libertad is great. So you can kind of see where I'm going with this. But they do tend to be a little bit more pricey, but you'll own the silver of the realm in which you reside in, and that can be very important. And finally, you may want to avoid the high premium items as they aren't typically the best things to stack. Premiums will shift, so you'll want to keep that in mind when you're deciding what it is you want to buy. And the last thing, and this isn't what people always do, but I do this, and that is buying based off what the GSR says. Now, when I say the GSR, I mean the gold to silver ratio. Essentially, it's just how cheap one metal is compared to the other, and you find that number by dividing the price of gold by the price of silver. And right now that ratio is about 92, meaning it takes almost 92 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. And typically, the higher the GSR number is, the cheaper silver is when you compare it to gold. So people like myself will buy silver or gold based off of what that number is. And for me, I believe anything above 80 is a buy for silver, and anything below 60 is a buy for gold. And in between that is really just a preference at that point, but I think you understand what I mean by that. And with the number at 92, if you buy in now and the GSR goes down to, let's say, 65, you could trade in 65 of the 92 ounces you bought and buy some gold, and you'll still have 27 ounces of silver left over. And it works the other way too. You can sell or trade in your gold for more silver if the ratio goes back up. So if I were doing this right now, starting over, and you can do this, you can copy my method and you can get involved with precious metals this way. But all you have to do is to start. You don't need to have over $3,000 to spend on gold right away. You can start with silver. Because remember, that GSR, you can always convert it into gold once you reach that ratio. However, just set a goal for yourself. I originally had set to achieve 120 ounces by this year, and I ended up beating that in just 2 months. And I think you'll be surprised at how fast you can actually hit your goal if you're committed to it. But if I were starting today with nothing, I would start with buying some Buffalo rounds. They are generally the, gateway metal, if you will, into stacking. And you'll have something that can be bought relatively cheap, and it can be sold very quickly if you ever needed to liquidate it. And what I wouldn't do is overpay for something. And if you remember the premium topics, as I mentioned earlier, certain coins are going to fetch a higher premium, and you'll end up paying for more on one coin than another. Because remember, each 1 ounce of silver is the same as the other one. And another way to think of it is, would you want to pay $36 for 1 ounce of silver? Or would you want to pay 42 ounces for 1 ounce of silver? Essentially, they are the same content and weight, but the design and who minted them is the difference. And that's going to be the premium you pay. So just try to avoid extremely high ones and get silver as close to spot as possible. So remember, guys, no matter how bad things appear and how negative it is out there, the worst thing that you can do, in my opinion, is not getting started at all. Don't let disaster, high prices, or chaos dissuade you from getting into this hobby or investment. We've been through a lot in these last 5 years, and the metals are still here, and they're going up in value. So just remember to stick to the philosophy and the strategies of dollar cost averaging, buying cheap silver, and knowing what to buy. your future self will be very glad that you did. But that's going to be all for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye, guys.